If you want to get paid, you got to do the CEO job.
What you had to pour in before you could start buying back your time.
I have a chapter called The Replacement Ladder. If I lost it all today and you took everything away from me, the first thing I would do is hire an executive assistant. The beginning days, our only job is to create revenue. Why? Profit solve all problems.
If you don't know how to hire, train, and manage, and you hire somebody who's double or triple the pay, you're wasting so much money on the skill set you haven't developed yet.
Most people, when I go, do you have an assistant? And they go, no. I said, technically you do. It's you and you're overpaid and you suck. So my rule is people don't buy your presence, they buy your standard.
Today, we're talking about buying back your time as a business owner. There are a million things to do. You are wearing all of the hats. You are marketing, you are sales, you are maybe in customer success, fulfillment, product development, whatever you call it, operations. One problem arises and you go running to put it out, right? And then there's another one that pops up in the middle of that current fire, right? And it can just feel like it's never ending. And this is just the life we've signed up for. I once had a client say, I thought this was just a season. And then a few seasons in, I realized, no, this is my life. Like, this is what I signed up for. And I reassured her, okay, I know it's been like this for a while, but you're here now. We're going to fix it. We're going to make it truly be just a season and not your life, your permanent situation. So I am so excited. I definitely fangirled a little bit over my guest today, Dan Martell. Dan has an incredible book called Buy Back Your Time. He just told me it is number, I think 17 or 18 on Amazon in all of nonfiction books, not just business or a certain division, but in all of nonfiction, it is at number 17. And it's not even a brand spanking new book. It's been there for a while, which is crazy. So Dan has had, I think, over 100 plus companies that he has built, bought, exited, you name it. This guy is just somebody that I have learned now from for a little while. And every time I hear him speak, him present, I cannot take notes fast enough. He is just somebody that is just, you can just tell his heart is here to pour, to serve. He loves people like us in the small business world. And we're going to talk about why to buy back your time, what it takes to buy back your time, certain strategies on how to buy back your time. And we get into a little bit of the mindset of why you're not doing it or why you keep doing certain things that you know you shouldn't be doing. So I am so excited. You are in for a big treat. So let me introduce you to my guest, Dan Martell. Dan, welcome to Well-Oiled Operations. I am really looking forward to our conversation today.
Stacy, it's an honor. I obviously love your content. I was just telling you that. And just watching the way you speak about the problems that we help people with was just really refreshing. Obviously, you're tuned in and and I think you just you remind me, you're not Canadian, right?
No, I'm from Wisconsin.
Yeah, so you're close enough where it's you've got that vibe. So I know we're really going to enjoy this conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the person listening is a driven entrepreneur. They're always looking for ways to multiply their time, just get time off their calendar, but yet they do those activities and then they fill them back up. So I was really excited to bring you on. I specifically told my podcast manager, I'm like, I want Dan on the show. We've got to talk about his book. But before we dive into amazing strategies and just your tips and takeaways, I would love for everybody listening to hear your entrepreneurial story, your background, how you've got here.
I mean, it would take the whole podcast because I'm not old, but I'm 44. I've been doing it since I was 17. So it's at 27 years. So that's why I'll share some stuff and people will be like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. I'm like, no, you're not. I didn't do anything interesting. It took me 7 years to finally even make money. I just started young. I mean, I have a whole backstory of getting in trouble with the law and growing up in a lot of chaos and ended up in prison twice by the time I was 17. So there's that part of my life. Yeah. But as it pertains to understanding the business structure and the process, what people wouldn't know if I didn't tell them is that in rehab, I did 11 months. This place saved my life. It literally rebuilt my self-worth, helped me rebuild the trust that I'd lost with my family, my parents, my brothers and sisters. And at the end of that program, I discovered this, there was this old computer sitting in one of the cabins and a yellow book on Java programming and software technology. And it spoke to me. And I'll tell you why it spoke to me is because for the first time in my life, I grew up in a lot of uncertainty, a lot of chaos. There was something calming about building a script some code, a program, if you want to call it that, that if the computer ran, as long as there was power, this thing would do the thing I told it to do for eternity. And it was kind of this like epiphany for me of going, oh, I might not feel like I have any control in my life right now. I don't feel honestly even self-worth, but I know that when I kind of go heads down and I build this thing, that it'll do what I want it to do. And for a lot of people that are kind of more systems thinkers or process oriented, I think that's the feeling that they fall in love with, right? I sit down, there's chaos in my life, but if I design this thing and then hold people accountable to it, it'll bring consistency and predictability into my business, to my life. And that's what I fell in love with. Software programming was the tool, but what it brought to me at a time that I needed most was the certainty, right?
Yeah.
And so when people read my book or they work with me personally, they always go like, where did you learn this? And I know exactly where I learned it, in writing software code. So everything I do today in business, I can point to a software principle, like, for example, there's this concept called DRY, do not repeat yourself, which is a programming concept, meaning that when you write the code, you put it in a function. The function does the thing forever and eternity. And as long as you call the function properly, it will always do that. You don't create the same code in 15 different places in your code base. You write it once and then you call it and it does its thing. That was like the big aha for me. That's where it all came together. And then since then I got out and I discovered this little thing called the internet. This is 1997. Yeah. And it took me, like I said, 7 years of building software companies to finally find traction. I hired a coach. And at 24, I started my first successful business.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing. So I've built and exited a lot. I don't even remember. Like, it's kind of funny. People are like, how many companies are you invested in? I got a spreadsheet. It's over 100. I don't even know. But wow. I've exited. Yeah, it's kind of bananas. So like, I have a whole team of people. We buy a software company every month right now.
Yeah. And like, for everybody listening that doesn't know you, like in my world, you are known as like the software guy, the guy that teaches people who have softwares.
That run the largest software CEO coaching group in the world. We have, I think we've coached over 5,000 CEOs in the last 7-8 years. Yeah. I just announced my CEO of SaaS Academy. So that company is called SaaS Academy. So Johnny just got announced last week as the CEO. So talk about buying back your time.
Yeah.
Just bought 35 hours a week, essentially. But no, he's been running the company for a year now. So it's not a big impact on my calendar. But yeah, I mean, people knew me for a long time as a software guy. And when my buddy Ron called me up and said, you need a book. And I'm like, no, I don't. He's like, yes, you do. I said, done pretty good without one. He's like, yeah, but, and I acknowledge him at the end of the book. Like if you go to the acknowledgement, you'll read the whole story of how the book became the book. But this was the one that was on my heart. I've been teaching the buyback principle for 15 years.
Yeah.
And when I think of all my entrepreneurial friends that were still struggling, the people you coach, you work with, that was what was on my heart to sit down and write. It took me about 2.5 years. And I just found out, I don't even know if you know this. Well, you probably wouldn't. The book is number 18 in the world right now for nonfiction.
That is like, crazy.
Not in just business.
Right.
World. Yeah. If you go on Amazon right now, we have a little blue label thing they gave us because the book, it's hit a nerve in the market, and it's just a freaking honor. And that's why, like, I'm a big fan of living my life out loud. So if you follow me on Instagram, and I know, you do a lot of the gram, I quote often, I say, my work ethic is a reflection of my gratitude. I know I am here because somebody was looking out for me.
Yeah.
I show up every day. Yes, to buy back my time, but no, that's not it. It's the build your empire. Like my editors were like, don't put that word, that'll scare people. I said, no, I want to scare them. I'm not a 4-hour work week. I want to teach people how to build businesses they don't grow to hate.
Yeah. And okay, so the title is so good. I'm not surprised it's as high as it is, because you just see it and everybody's like, yes, I want that. Like it's a phenomenal title. Sometimes I think people come in and they haven't built what you're talking about. They are on business number 1 and they're talking about business number 2, and they haven't delegated and they haven't done all that. So you're this guy that has had tons and tons of businesses. Can you talk about a little bit of like what you had to pour in before you could start buying back your time? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I do a lot of work with troubled youth. They're my favorite to work with. And the reason why is they bring me to the beginning. So like last Friday, we were talking about like, when is a business birth? And this whole conversation is like, when do you become an entrepreneur? It's fun because the moms are in the room sometimes because they're the ones that drive them. They're 15 years old. And this one, we finally all agreed the moment somebody pays you with money, transact, for a product or service. Cool. So this little kid, Rua's in the room, and he said when we did our intros, he wanted to start a video editing company. And I said, Rua, you want to do video editing? He goes, yes. I said, cool. I walked over, I shook his hand. I said, I'm wiring you the money right now. Team, send him $500. I'm hiring you to do a project. Ta-da, you're an entrepreneur. And the whole room erupted, right? Because it was just such a fun, like realization. The guy that thought he had to have a location, 15 people building homes as a construction person, realized he could go sell a doghouse and get into business today. Like that was kind of awesome. But when I go at the beginning and I think about like what sequence of focus should you work on to get to this level? And I have a chapter called The Replacement Ladder, which I created to help give some guidance. If I lost it all today, right, and you took everything away from me, the first thing I would do is hire an executive assistant. And some people like, even before you have a business, yes, why? Okay, let's pretend I didn't know how to sell or I didn't know how to create value in the market. I'm just going to assume that I could figure it out fast enough that as soon as I did, anything that's not that, I shouldn't be doing. Like it's really that simple. When you're starting off, the entrepreneur has to figure out what you're going to sell. And I've heard you talk about the, is it the Grand Slam offer or the
bestseller?
Yeah, the bestseller. Like that entrepreneur has to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Once you have that, then you need to, and you teach this, you say marketing and sales. Then you go out to the market and you just talk. Here, you got this problem. No. Okay. Next person. Yeah. And then you get them to purchase. And anything that's not that, honestly, somebody else can help you. And some people, how do you find these magical unicorn people? Well, I don't know, Stacy, you probably have a magical pool because I know I have a magical pool. And when you go fishing in that magical pool, you just happen to find incredible talent, right? Stacy, like that's how it works. No, it doesn't. It's a process. Everything's a process. And that's why, in the book, I talk about the buyback loop, and it's really about audit, transfer, fill. Audit your calendar for time and energy. If you're spending all your time marketing and selling and you don't know how to manage an assistant, then the next level of once you audit, transfer, fill, the fill part is to invest in your skills. Some people need to learn how to work with an assistant. Cool. That's your skill. Because maybe you have one. I remember my brother, first assistant, I was all excited for. Okay. It took him, just so we all know here. My brother's a very smart cat. Okay. It took him 14 years in business, and I'm his brother. And I've been doing this for 17 years. It took him 14 years in business, watching me scale, exit, invest, grow, and travel the world with my family and have the most fun while he's grinding. And he finally says, I'm going to hire an assistant. And 6 months later, I'm at his house having a barbecue. I'm so excited. How you doing, bro? How's the assistant? Like, your life must be changed. He goes, I don't see what the big deal is. Oh, I know what you did. And he's like, what? I go, you haven't given that person access to your inbox. Like they manage the emails. Well, what do you mean? I know what you're doing. You're routing to that person stuff to do. I said, dude, you're literally taking the mental overhead that you should not be doing to free up your time to go biz dev, vendors, selling, like whatever problem's broken in your business. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I literally told you inbox and calendar, you do not own. They become the CEO of those two things and you collaborate with them. You're the talent now. They own it and they work with you. And he's like, 2 weeks later, calls me back. Got it. Holy cow, I was dumb. Like, you know what I mean? So to me, that's why I say at the beginning days, our only job is to create revenue. Why? Profit solve all problems. Other day, I was coaching one of my CEOs and he's like, there's this issue with the process and da. I said, hey man, I love that you have that mind to find opportunities to fix in the business. Do you know what's broken? He's like, what? I said, the revenue team. He goes, yeah. I said, dude, anything that isn't fixing the revenue team is not part of the conversation right now, because the revenue team will unlock pure gross margin / profit. And that will then allow us to hire people to fix the stuff you just told me about. And then you buy back your time and you have more fun. The business is doing better. I'm happier. Let's get, you know what I mean? So that's also a skill to understand what to focus on in sequence. But right out of the gate, if somebody's, these young cats, they're like, you really think I should get an assistant? I said, dude, you're 15. Go get your buddy, call him an intern, call it a day. Like this isn't, you don't have to overcomplicate it, but anything that isn't selling or marketing, that should be not you. And I like that it's low stakes, right? Stacy, like you're not waiting. Like some people are like, I need to hire an integrator, and it's like, no, you don't. You need an assistant. You don't need to pay $300,000 for an integrator when your business barely makes profit so that you can like feel like you're playing business. And you don't even know how to work with an assistant. So that's kind of my early philosophy when you're like, a couple $100,000 of revenue and you really want to get to 7 to 8.
Yeah.
You got to focus on just low cost to have somebody else buy time out of your calendar. Because my whole
Yeah.
thing, the
Okay.
buyback
So good.
principle states you don't hire people to grow the business, you hire people to buy back your time. Because if you do the second, you'll get the first. But if you do the first, you don't get the second, right? It's not a capacity problem, it's a calendar problem for the CEO.
Yeah, Stan, so good. What I hear a lot of times people will say, okay, they'll hear this idea, get an assistant, they go get one. And then they're kind of like your brother, it's not working. I don't get the hype, right? And it's just truly you don't know how to delegate yet. You haven't, or you've got trust issues and you're delegating, I'm air quotes there, because it's not something that is actually getting off your plate. Now you're micromanaging and you've given yourself more work, right? So I do think it's one of those things where you may have built a team before. You may have felt like it really wasn't what you wanted, but it is a skill set that you need to invest your time and energy and money into and learning. And I love that you're saying, don't go get an integrator, get an assistant, because if you don't know how to hire, train, and manage, and you hire somebody who's double or triple the pay, you're wasting so much money on the skill set you haven't developed yet.
Yeah, most people, when I go, do you have an assistant? And they go, no. I said, technically you do. It's you and you're overpaid and you suck. You know what I mean? Like, that's what nobody wants to hear.
Right.
They're the ones booking their travel. They're the ones replying to every email. They're the ones running errands. It's funny because a lot of it is fear of guilt. You work with these entrepreneurs. They give all the great stuff to everybody else, and then they keep all the stuff that they would call crap because they feel bad asking other people to do it. And then they wonder why they wake up and their business could be doing good, but they hate what their day looks like because they end up spending time doing stuff that just sucks their energy. So my rule is people don't buy your presence, they buy your standard. So a lot of people have a problem with this, especially in the service business. I had a guy, we'll call him Mike. He owned a bike shop that I brought my, I do triathlon stuff. So always buying, geez, I got more money in bikes than most people have in cars. So I'm a good customer to Mike. And I only want one thing from a vendor. Do what you say you're going to do. It's not a crazy concept. Like, you sold me something. How about you just do what you said you're going to do? But Mike, every time I'd show up to the bike shop, he'd run up to the door to shake my hand. Hey, Stacy, how's it? It's good. How the kids? Da, 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 da. Oh, it's so great to see you. What are you looking for? Let me help you out. Blah, 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 blah. And then I'd be like, hey, man, when's my other bike coming in? He'd be like, you know what? Somebody forgot to do this and we didn't have the part and da, 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 da. And that happened like 3 or 4 times. And then finally I walked in, and usually I don't even tell vendors because, like, I'm not coaching them and they're not paying me. And, some people don't want to hear it, but, I knew him well enough. And I said, Mike, I pulled him aside and I said, hey, here's the situation. I'm going to switch shops because you can't do what you say you're going to do. And I know the reason why you can't do that is because you're so involved in the customer experience, because you have a belief that that's what we need to keep coming back. I want you to go to your office. See your office up there, Mike? I want you to go into your office and be CEO. And I've seen you talk about this. If you want to get paid, you got to do the CEO job.
Yeah.
Mike, you're not doing the CEO job, and it's pissing me off, and it's going to cost you a very high value customer, because I know what these bikes, the margins are and how much I spend. And I'm very influential. All my friends.
I was just going to say, your reputation. Hey, where do you get your bikes, Dan? And now you say in a different company.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars he got because I started shopping there. And there's a guy down the street, less than 3 miles away, that I just never gave a second chance because I really liked Mike, but I don't like the fact that. So it's like, even that whole, like, people don't buy your presence, they buy your standards. And understanding how to create an environment where you communicate that when you sell something. It's like, here's how we do things. This is our process. Here's how we hire people. We, not I. Like, nobody that starts coaching with me in my lower end programs is like, oh, I'm going to get Dan one-on-one. No, I have a method. SaaS Academy is run by Johnny. Like, I don't do any coaching in that company. I'm an owner, not an operator. And I know you talk about that. So I really think that's the mental model that has to shift for people to let things go. And I get it. Trusting talent is scary. It's so scary. Think about it.
Especially when you've been holding on for so long.
Oh, a person that you just kind of met, you hire them, has the potential to make you look absolutely stupid, to cost you a lot of money. I remember one time my best friend called me up. One of his guys, he owned a sign company, he didn't screw the hook for the sign, LED sign, $250,000 sign. He didn't screw the hook into the sign. He hooked it into the steel flashing, which is about 1 millimeter thick. And they hung it on the wall, and then they let it go, and the sign dropped to the ground.
Wow.
So I get, people are scared of that, or worse, somebody does something so bad that costs you the business. It almost happened to me one time. Literally, I got the call. My client fired my team member, sent him home, said they were going to sue us. At that time, we were small.
Right.
I was looking at losing the business. I get the fear. Here's what I always tell people in those situations, because this will help with the delegating. How did I contribute to that situation? That's the part nobody wants to talk about. Right. How did you as the CEO contribute to that happening? You can blame Bob. You can blame Jim. You can blame it. It's no problem. It would actually be totally reasonable for 98% of the population to go, well, you didn't hook the thing to ba-da-da. It fell off the wall. That person said something he shouldn't have said. He did that. No. You hired him. You trained him. You didn't pay attention. Whatever it is, you created the environment where that happened. Because I'll tell you, there are other companies that have 10,000 employees and don't have those situations happen. Why? They have more complexity. Why? Because they learn the skills that you don't have yet. And I think that's the big thing is like, instead of just saying, I can do it, because I mean, if we want to get into the mindset stuff, I actually, a lot of it is trauma from way back there. When I say way back, if you're listening to this, I'm talking about, you know where, okay? Back, way back, when you were a child. And what happens is your emotions come up that cause you to not want to delegate because of these fears that are based on a completely different scenario that you just haven't processed. I consider trauma a book. Most people are given the book. They know what's in the book. They don't want to read the book. They put the book on the bookshelf. And because of that, it shows up in their business. See, most business problems are personal problems that just show up in the business. It's fun because I'm more on the direct, candid side, but then the other side is the people pleasers, right? And both have their issues, right? The direct, candid guy can't keep people because he's too honest. The person's a people pleaser, can't get people to do any work because they don't want to hurt their feelings or get them to do things they don't like to do. Or this is my favorite, Stacy. I'm in Nashville giving a keynote, doing Q&A, and a woman goes, "What would you do in this situation?" And I was like, "Tell me about it." She caught a woman stealing from her. She had a dental practice, stealing. Okay. And because she was the daughter of the mother that also worked there and had worked there for 22 years, she decided to keep her on the team. And the person kept stealing. And it got so bad that the accounting firm was like, "You have to sue them, because if not, you're gonna have to pay taxes. You don't have the money, Right. So she called the police. And then the woman, the mother, is upset that she fired her daughter because she was stealing, said, "You should have told me, we could have figured this out." But Stacy, this was the craziest part. She asked me, "What should I do with that employee?" I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "She still works for us. You had the police charge her for a crime in your business and she still works there." "Yes, Dan, she still works there. What should I do?" The whole room screamed at her.
Right.
Her. But I'm not surprised, Stacy, because it was just so fast.
It's so easy to like say fire her, but when you're in it, you're like, it just feels so different.
Small town. What if the mom who's been there for 22 years, she quits? She knows everything. So I lose the daughter. I lose the mom. I have everybody in my small town. I'm a dental practice. Everybody knows everybody. I get it. But back to the question, how did you create that scenario? And she immediately said, "I probably shouldn't have hired her daughter because she wasn't that good in the first place." Duh, ding dong, ding dong. And she's been there for 22 years. Is she literally the best person in the city right now, or she's the easiest person for you to keep around because you don't want to go look? "Oh yeah, she's not probably the best." No, she's not. Like, it's just fascinating how we do it to ourselves, and it all comes from trauma back in the back.
Yeah. And we just hold on to it.
Yeah. And we keep blaming systems. Like, "I got a systems problem." No, you don't. You got a people problem, and you are the person that has the problem, and it's showing up. It's kind of like the people that, they're single. So like, let's say a guy, and he's got a girlfriend, blonde, and then, it doesn't work out. He's like, "She was crazy." And then he goes and finds a brunette. And he's like, "This one's different." Same thing happens.
Right.
Yeah. She was, there's something wrong with her. Okay. Then the redhead. It's like, dude, do you realize that you have a picker problem? Like, the problem isn't the people out there, is you have a picking problem, and you keep reintroducing yourself to people that create the exact same scenario, because until you overcome it, I believe we are presented essentially assignments. Call them what you want. I believe we're given assignments by the people in our lives to learn lessons. And if we don't learn them, they keep repeating. And I just see people in business do this over and over again.
But we make excuses how it's not the same scenario. It's a little different.
She's a brunette. Nope. She's a redhead. Nope. She's a Christian. She's from a different family. And It's like, nope. It's
the same thing as last week, right? Or last month or last year. Absolutely. Okay. So good. So I would love to hear, what are some common mistakes you see working with other business owners when it comes to managing time, productivity, making those excuses? What do you see most? Like, what's something big you try to help them fix?
First off, I don't think people actually plan. My good friend's wife, she came home one day from the gym. She's like, man, I heard something that really struck a nerve. I said, what's that? She goes, if you plan to fail, you fail to plan. Or if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I was like, that's an original. She's like, really? And what's fun is I'm glad she learned it, because every time we do anything with that family, always late, always last minute, always. The amount of money they've spent to fix things that they could have fixed with a little bit of planning is fascinating to me. And so a lot of folks in all my companies, as part of kind of like our time management process, we just teach people to block time, the things that they have to do. So most entrepreneurs, because they like variety so much and freedom, they don't want to block out their calendar.
Right.
Like that gives
they got
them
into it for the white space.
I want the openness.
Yeah.
But then they leave it up to chance that day if they had a good day or a bad day. It's fascinating, right? And the day before they travel is always the most productive day of the freaking month or the quarter or whatever it is, because they had to be productive. So right off the bat, the mistake people make is not understanding how much of their calendar they actually have for capacity, because that's the big thing. If I don't know what I said yes to, then I don't know what to say no to. And I don't know if a no is a yes to my goals and a yes is a no to my goals. Because that's the truth. If you say yes to something, you're saying no to something, but most people don't even know what they're saying no to. So they are always, hey, got a second? Yeah, got a second. I have a buddy, we call him right now, guarantee he'd answer his phone, guarantee he would take my call. And it fascinates me because somehow he keeps struggling in his business and he wonders why. I'm like, dude, you shouldn't be this available. You have a business to run, which means you should be in a rhythm of doing stuff that hopefully is more important than a random call from your buddy. It's not like I said, 911, I need you to answer. I just randomly call it when I'm driving and he always magically answers. And
he's very reactive, very responsive.
Reactive. And guess what? People get addicted to that because it feels good. It feels good to feel needed, right? I like when people need me. No. Anybody that creates that environment is because they haven't built the rhythms of the business, right? So first off, let's talk about your goals for the quarter, your projects for the quarter, what you want to get done. And then let's block those into the calendar so we understand how much extra capacity or none that you have, and to tell you how ridiculous some of these goals are. Because that's the other thing that people say. Like, we're going to 10x our business in the next 90 days. It's like, okay, have you ever done that? Well, no, but I read a book. Yeah, I know you read a book. You should reread the book, because the book doesn't say that. A BHAG is a 25-year goal, not a freaking 90-day goal. You know what I mean? Like, Stacy, you deal with this all the time. So I would say, first off, block time in the calendar. Second is understanding, as a leader, your job is to build your people. That is actually what a leader does, is they develop talent. 100%.
Can you just say that again? They develop talent.
They develop talent. Okay. It's talent acquisition, talent development, talent retention. That is what a leader does. And here's the thing with talent development. I was coaching a guy once and he was all mad, my team this, my team that. I let him go on for about 3 minutes. And then finally I said, here's the deal. Make a list. He's like, a list of what? I said, of everything they do that frustrates me. Everything. It's like, well, it's everything. I said, cool, let's make a list. Should be easy then. And he put stuff on there that, they're very normal. My team doesn't know how to collaborate in meetings. My team doesn't manage their time. My team this, my team that. They don't communicate well, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. I said, cool. You got the list? Yeah, got the list. Okay, so pretend this is a list. This is my hand. This is a list. You got a list. Show me in your calendar where you have time allocated to teach your team those things. Well, why would I do that? Oh, I'm sorry. If you don't do it, who should do it? Well, they should just know how. Oh, really? Did you just know how? When you started, did you just magically, like Matrix, like Neo, like, I now know Kung Fu? No, you didn't, dude. Somebody taught you. You bought training. You went and worked with Stacy. Like, somebody showed you. And you think because you hire a director, and let's be honest, people, the inflated title problem. Geez Louise, like, come on. I get you don't want to pay people what they're worth, so you give them an inflated title, but that just makes the problem even worse, because then
it does.
Yeah, you hold them.
Now they're researching and they're like, well, salary.com says I'm supposed to be making 250,000, and they're a project manager.
Yeah. And then you're like, do you forget the conversation we had 6 months ago where you said you were willing to take a pay cut to get the title? Now you're telling me I need to pay an extra 100. It's fascinating. But what happens is people don't know that that's the job to develop, and that's a skill, right? Stacy, you're an incredible teacher. To learn how to teach people is a skill. And most CEOs have never actually sat down and said, what are my thoughts on this? Like, what does collaborating in a meeting appropriately? What are my 5 steps or principles? Where did I learn this? Is there some books I could recommend, et cetera, et cetera? The best people sometimes do is a book club, which is honestly just, it's watered down a version of this. So as an example, in my active company, I always have one company. Right now it's my media company. Every Monday, I do leadership development. Every Monday. And what's fun for me is as I go throughout the week and I see things that are broken, I make a list. Like I actually got a killer training for next Monday because I was auditing one of our programs and I realized that the person who was in charge of it didn't understand product management because it's a skill. But it wasn't even the product management side. They didn't understand how to create product. So my training on Monday is essentially like these 5 or 6 principles around product kind of theory. Like, how do I look at what is a product? How do I look at it? And here are the 5 principles. And then I always share a story, right? Because I know how to teach. And the cool part is when I'm done that, I'm going to take that recording and I'm going to put it in the leadership training SOP.
Right.
Like next time I hire a new leader, they're going to be trained on my philosophy for product management. And I'll give them some other books if they want to go deeper, but at least they understand 80% the way I like it.
Yeah.
I have to teach it again. See, that's the fun part. Think about this. I always tell people, for the amount of effort you put into teaching your clients things, I would argue 50% of that same effort should be teaching your team because there's 2 products to build. There's the client experience and then there's the employee experience. And they're both the same funnels, right? Awareness, consideration, purchase/hire, onboarding, activation, and then, development and then retention, right? Expansion, development, retention. So there's 2 funnels in every business. Just most CEOs have never been told there's the other one, which is the
right. Just as if not important, because without them, your business crashes, right? It's relying on you.
Business exists without people, period, full stop. You build the people, to build the business.
I do hear a lot. People will say, wow, you teach a lot of meetings. Like, I don't really want to be in business to be in meetings all day. But you sharing what you're going to do in Monday's meeting really shows people these aren't just boring meetings where there's no, like, we're just checking in. No, we're actually, like you said, developing talent, right? So I think that was a great example of like, I was finding something that wasn't working, or I've noticed, right? And I want to teach it to them. And it's interesting too, because a lot of the people that are in our community, we spend a lot of money on coaches, consultants, programs. We want to get better, yet we don't give that to them. And that's what you're doing on your Monday. It is crazy. Like, you're so smart at your calendar, but what about your team? Did you teach your team the calendar hacks that you do? Maybe not.
And this is what most CEOs do. They go to a mastermind, right? You mentioned talking more. So it's like they go there and then they come back and they play this game of telephone, and the team's like, what did you learn? And you're like, and sometimes, and most people don't even tell their team. Right. And then they need that. It's like, I'm going to jump on the marketing meeting because we're going to talk about TikTok ads. It's like, I'm going to teach you about TikTok ads versus saying, and this is what I do because I was a client of Taki's. I've had him on my podcast. Yeah. Amazing. He changed the way I think about building coaching. I just gave I asked Taki, can I give logins to my team? And he's like, for sure. So what we do is internally, every one of our SOPs have training for the SOP that link other people's trainings. I'm not going to teach something that somebody else has been doing it for 20 years can teach better. I'm just going to log it in, put it in my 1Password, and all of a sudden my team is being expanded and taught the thing. Cause like it's all recorded. We're at the same talk. I think you said you saw me speak at Taki's event.
I did. Yeah.
That's
and let me tell you, if I just relayed back what you said, I will do it not nearly as good as you. I will have none of those stories. I will have no inspiration, but I'll say, here are the tactics. And that doesn't make a good teacher. So I do believe in giving my team access to programs that allow it, right? That let them go in there, because I want that person to do the job of getting them excited, getting them on the same page. And now together we get to move forward and implement and incorporate those strategies.
How we buy back our time. We build the people. And guess what? You don't have to build people. The only reason I do the leadership training is because I use that as the input to write books.
Yeah.
I can hire people that can do the leadership training and have them do it. I personally enjoy it. So when I look at my calendar, it's like, I want to do things that light me up, that make me a lot of money. Me distilling 20 years of experience on product management, 15 books. I've worked with the best in the world. I've done it personally into a framework that maybe in the future, someday I might grab that video, transcribe it, and put it as a chapter of a book. That's high leverage, right? I just think that most people, for example, we'll talk about meetings and development. This is so fun. I don't get to talk about this stuff at this depth. And this is where the rubber meets the road. For example, most owners of a business should not own the meetings. Yes. So I do not run meetings. I am
when I do, they're awful. I skip everything.
Well, it's because we know what we want to talk about and we don't follow process. It turns out, and you're not developing your leaders. So it's actually better to say, hey, this is our process for this meeting. You're going to run it. I'm the talent. And here's the kicker. You always go last. So we're doing project reviews, I want to sit back. And so what I do is I write things down. So if Johnny on my team, Johnny's my CEO that just took over SaaS Academy for a while. Didn't take him long because he got it. I would sit back and he'd run the meeting. I'd write notes down. On my one-on-one, I would say, hey, man, the executive leadership team meeting, awesome job. Few little cues. You did this. You should have let that person talk more. You didn't prompt this person. He's like, whoa, that's awesome. Thank you. Perfect. Next meeting, way better. And then little notes. And what happens is the person's like, oh my gosh, I'm growing so fast. They don't feel attacked because it's on your one-on-one. One of the agendas on the one-on-one is for the person to ask me if it literally says, what is Dan's feedback? So they ask me, I'm not telling them what they did wrong. They go, hey man, is there anything that I can get better at? And I'm like, actually, 1 second, boom. And I have a list. I don't blast them in Slack. I don't call them, like some CEOs are not fun to work with. And guess who was one of them? This guy, 2000. I'll be the first one to admit, I didn't understand any of this. I burned through a lot of people. Again, I'm a high direct feedback. I think everybody likes to be told in real time where they could get better. Turns out, Stacy, not a lot of people. Turns out that's not a way to do it.
Yeah.
So I just think, meetings are required. Participating as a collaborator is a completely different experience than as the person who owns the meeting. So that changes the energy. So if you don't like meetings, I don't disagree. I hate meetings. I don't run meetings. I just show up to provide context. And for example, like I have one of my companies, they have a weekly L10 or whatever they want to call it. We call it a sync, weekly sync. I show up for the first 6 minutes and I just speak about the vision. I just tell them, hey, here's what's on my heart. This is where we're going the next 5 years. Here's the sequence of the big moves that I think would be required. But again, I'm just throwing out some ideas. You guys are going to decide it because you guys own this. And I just speak vision, and that's my job. And as long as the team feels like there's value there, I'll keep showing up for the first 5 minutes, and that's it. And then I get my time back. And I think asking ourselves as owners, do I really need to be there? Some CEOs have to be on every meeting that has more than one person on it to make sure that nobody makes a decision that isn't aligned with them. Fascinating. Yeah. Enjoy that. That sounds like versus saying, hey, how about I get better at casting a vision, vivid vision, strategic planning, project management, get better at the things that are causing you to be upset when something gets a decision made that's not aligned. There's not aligned because you haven't given anybody a target to line towards.
Yeah. So good. Okay. I know we're at time, so I'm going to respect your time and wrap up. What are you currently buying back your time for? What is Dan Martell working on? Where is your time and energy best spent right now?
Actually, a great question. So this quarter, I mentioned stuff I do at at-risk youth. I'm working on activating more of the community side of my life. So it's always been there, but I kind of woke up the other day and realized there's a lot more I could do. So it's less business, but kind of, because essentially the way I activate the community is, I did 6 calls yesterday with owners or directors of group homes, foster homes, nonprofit organizations, crisis centers, rehab centers, foster care. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to dedicate a lot more of my time to coaching and training these people on the stuff that I teach my clients that are already rich. Yeah. Cause I was like, look, I already have, I have a massive audience. We have about 2 million people follow me on social media, and I have an entrepreneurial community that they're kind of they're already winning. So all I do, this, as a business person, my job is just to be better at picking and developing people. Cool. I want to go out into my local community and help the nonprofits. And the reason why is they actually exposed me. They show me kind of the at-risk youth stuff I do. We call it King's Club. Working with those kids, they show me what it's like to be at the beginning. Working with the nonprofits gives me a completely different mental model to work through because they have scarcity mindset because they're in it today. Right? Easy for us to feel expansive and opportunity and there's abundance. Imagine if your day was literally interacting with the unhoused community and people that have mental disorders, and like you're just trying to get them to take a shower. Like they're trying to also write grants. And so I'm going to come in and work. That's kind of like the big, like, 15, 20 hours of my week that I want to relocate. But the cool part is I have a team of people. I hire CEOs all the time. Cause like I mentioned, we buy a company pretty much every month with Big Man Software, and Kevin's the CEO and he runs that. And yeah. And then what else am I doing? Working on my next book. So I haven't announced that yet. So
Cool.
It'll be January 2026 is the date.
Amazing.
But I really like writing. I like the writing process. I don't actually tap. John Maxwell said once, he goes, there's speakers that write and writers that speak. I am a speaker that writes. So
yeah, I love
that's
it.
kind of what I'm buying back my time. And then, just trying to figure out how much my wife will let me travel. Cause it sounds funny, but when you can do anything, it actually isn't as fun as people think. Cause my wife doesn't like to be on an airplane all the time, even though we have our own plane. It's not her jam. So I'm trying to push the boundaries a little bit. We're getting some support. And
amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, Dan, where can people find your book? I assume it's probably everywhere, but if you want to fill us in.
Yeah, Instagram is my favorite place. So Dan Martell, 2 L's Martell on Instagram. If anybody wants, I know, Stacy, you give away your job description for EA. I actually have my internal 40-page SOP that I'll give everybody.
Amazing.
You got to follow me. That's the only thing I ask, where I'm trying to build my audience. And then you got to mention Stacy. So if you mention Stacy and EA and you message me, I will just send you directly to Google Doc, no opt-in, no nothing. It's my gift to your community. The book is at buybackyourtime.com. Number 18 in the world right now on Amazon. So you can go there. It should pop up if you search anything that sounds like that. I'm humanity's biggest cheerleader. Stacy, I'm a big fan of your work. I want to see you continue.
Likewise.
Yes. Add zeros to everything, and here to support in any way.
I love it. Well, you guys go follow Dan on Instagram. Here's what I'll tell you. If you don't have an EA, you need one. So you're going to want that. If you have one, are you doing it maybe the way you should be, right? There's probably something in there that's going to give you a big golden nugget of what do I like change or modify with my current assistant. So definitely check it out. Dan, thank you for being here. Thank you for pouring into the community. Appreciate you so much. Just your book was life-changing. I love it. I can't recommend it enough. Not a surprise how well it's doing, like you mentioned before. So congrats to your success.
I appreciate it. Have an amazing rest of the day.